All right, I am here to talk about another cameo for use with Shang Tsung. On the roster for today is Goro. Now, I've seen a lot of people playing Goro with Shang Tsung. I'm going to give you my thoughts about him as a cameo. We're going to go over each of his moves, talk about what they can do, and what they do for Shang in particular. And then I will talk about what I think of him as a cameo for Shang Tsung overall. So, let's begin with what I think is his least useful move, which is Punch Walk. Punch Walk is pretty suspect. This is it. 12% on hit sends him full screen. So on hit, we kind of like it. Get a lot of hit advantage. Put our opponent way out there. But the real problem comes up when you use it on block. So you might think to yourself, when you see this at first, plus 9 frames, okay spacing, we can do that. We can come in for a forward 3 as old Shang, like that. But you would be missing out on some of the issues with this move. As you can see, 32 frames startup means that there is a lot of time for your opponent to react there. And if your opponent can react, I can show you that any 7-frame move is going to crack this. Just like that. So, summoning this on block is a really sketchy proposition, partially because of that, but also because the punch walk is a high. Every single hit of it is a high, and this makes it almost unusable. I'm going to do something like this. Look at that. Doesn't push him back. Doesn't do anything at all. Just completely whiffs, and you have 46 active frames plus 20 recovery frames. That's 66 frames where your opponent can just smack you for free. So, using this move on block is pretty bad. And using it on hit is truly not very impressive either. You're going to try to combo into it, you're going to do something like that, but you can't because it's too slow. Maybe you'll do something like this. Nope, still too slow. So, what are you stuck at? You're stuck doing this, maybe? Yeah, that works. And now you only got 29% when you could have gotten 38, almost 39, quite easily. So, there is just not much of a use case for this move. The only thing I can say about it that is good is that it walks pretty far. If you put it out there and your opponent is standing back over there, say a little further than round start, Goro will come over there, and the further they are away from you, the better the pushback's going to end up being after Goro connects. But your opponent could always just crouch it, hit Goro, screw over the whole move anyway. So you're not going to throw it out in these situations, even though it has good reach. You'll also notice, as I'm doing this, that the cooldown is what I would consider an average cooldown for a cameo. Unfortunately, this is a very below average move. So for a move like this, it's a very slow cooldown. So it's also the case that even though it is plus on block, at this distance, we can't enforce much here with plus 9. We can do this, but that's 19 frames, so they can actually jab us out of that, or do a sweep or something like that. And we don't have any other options here. We can do ground skull, but again, that's 19 frames. They can dash out of that and come up and beat us up. They just have choices. They don't have to sit here and obediently take this low kick. And we're out of range for something like the overhead. As you can see, that's not happening. And even if it was, we don't have enough plus frames to enforce it. We can do this into zoning, kind of. But again, our opponent can just crouch it. So crouching beats a lot of things that Goro can do. That's going to be a running theme with this Kameo. Now, it also says that it's an invincible wake-up. So let's just see how invincible it really is. Gonna get Liu Kang to do a meaty. Like that. And we're gonna respond with Goro. Look at that! The second hit of his meaty string came out before Goro could even land his punch. And Liu Kang's second hit from that meaty is pretty slow. So pretty much every time you try to do this as a invincible wake-up, you're going to get punished. And in some scenarios, you're going to get punished for a full combo. So this really, it has almost zero applications, especially for the amount of cooldown you're going to get because of it. So that brings us on to Goro's next move, which I think is more useful, but still probably only has very niche applications. Where Punch Walk is a button you should probably never press. Shoken Stomp is a button that you should press on some rare occasions. This is Shoken Stomp. If you double tap the Kameo button, neutral, you get Goro coming out doing an unblockable. As you can see, he's set to block all. And Goro is going to come out here and stomp on him. Now, as you can see, this move has maybe the longest cooldown of any Kameo in the whole game. And it is not good enough to warrant this cooldown, let me tell you. So, the problem with this move, well, one of the problems with this move, is that it has terrible tracking. If our opponent decides that he's going to move anywhere at all, we're just doing regular dashes. We're not even wave dashing. We're just Liu Kang dashing around. And we're going to summon Goro. It doesn't matter what he does, where he goes. All this random shit, he's gonna dodge it almost every time. Every once in a while, you'll catch him. But if he sees Goro go up, all he has to do is back off. In fact, he doesn't really need to back off that much. He could just dash back. So, he's going to do a recording with Nav. Now, this time, as you can see, he just backdashed after he saw Goro. And that's all he has to do. If Goro comes out and he just does nothing, sure. If he sees Goro, then backdashes, never. Now, you can aim Shoken Stomp, but it's a little bit tricky. See, that version was not aimed. It's much easier to aim Shoken Stomp if you do it during another move. There, I just tried to aim in front. And here, try to aim behind. Yeah, it's pretty difficult to actually get the move to aim. So, even when you aim it, it still has bad tracking. So sometimes you catch your opponent because they thought they outranged it and they didn't. But the truth is they still have plenty of time to dash around. You can do multiple dashes after seeing Goro jump. So there's no way you're going to hit them unless you have them in the corner. But that brings up the narrow use case for Goro, which is using him as a checkmate. Because he's an unblockable move, you can do something like this. So you did spinning spikes there. You'll get an unblockable Goro. Like that. So if you time it properly, you can have Goro coming down on your opponent's head just as your block string is ending. You'll do the chip damage from the block string and then the unblockable damage from Goro. And you'll have your opponent locked up into basically certain death. You get the idea. Call out Goro to go like that. And you've got him locked up. You could also do this with a throw. You could be like, okay, we're going to do this. Can't do it with Shang's throw, of course, because it moves him too much, but you put him in the forward throw. You can basically guarantee yourself 65 damage if you time it right. And if your opponent's been knocked down by something like the injection here, you can go injection, summon Goro, here comes Goro, like that. So, not completely useless, however, you have to keep in mind that if you use your injection somewhere like center screen, that you do this, and if you call Goro right now, you can land. But if you call Goro a little bit late, now your opponent has time to move around. You have to make sure that you're timing this just about perfectly. And that is something handy to have. However, the fact that it costs the entire Kameo meter and has this massively slow cooldown makes it something you're rarely ever going to use. Do you want to get 90 damage off for a full Kameo meter that you're probably never going to see again? The only person who has a cooldown this even close to this slow is Darius on his tornado kick. And people often don't get to use him twice in a round because of how slow that cooldown is. You're going to have the same problem here. So, another trick you can do with it is just anything that makes your opponent sit and block for a long time can make this okay. So you can do something like this, right? And if you're sitting there zoning them, you're putting out bullet hell here. They can be respecting you a little too much and get stomped on by Goro. But you have no moves at this distance that actually guarantee the stomp, in reality. So, this is mostly a move that is used to checkmate people. If you need that 90 damage to kill after you hit with an injection, or you have this block string going in the corner and you want to make sure that your opponent can't get out of this and they're dead, then this is the answer. This'll do it. So, next up in Goro's kit is his dead weight. And let me tell you, they did not name this move on accident. This is probably one of the worst mix-ups in the game, but it will get people just because of the nature of what it is. So this is dead weight. As you can see, it didn't grab Liu Kang standing and not blocking. That's because this move is a low throw. So it only hits crouchers. It does that. And you'll see that it's a launcher. And it's always a side switch. So, if your opponent's blocking low, you could do something like this. Right? And that would be your mix-up. Now, this is not a great mix-up for several reasons. One, this is about the best combo you can get off of it with Shang, which is lower than his normal B&Bs. Off of a mix-up, we don't usually care that the damage is a little bit lower. We've lost about 3%, something like that. But we do care when the mix-up takes 28 frames to come out and it's therefore incredibly reactable. And when it can only hit crouchers, it can't hit somebody who's standing. This is worse than an overhead. It only hits people who are crouching. An overhead could hit people who are standing and not blocking, or it could hit people who are crouching and blocking, or it could hit people who are crouching and not blocking. This move can hit people who are crouching and not blocking, or people who are crouching and blocking, but not people who are standing and not blocking. So it is just strictly worse than an overhead. And because it's always a side switch, we're often in a scenario where this is a little bit aggravating to us. We don't really want to switch sides, but we feel like the only way to hit our opponent is to try to use some kind of mix-up. So we end up kind of committed to using Goro's thing, and if they just stand right there, we have 51 frames of recovery, 28 frames of startup. That whole time, our opponent could punish us. And that is not the only problem with this move. Even if our opponent is crouching, we're going to have him do his low jab in attempt to counter us. So if he does his low jab, here's what happens. He just jabs us right out of it. No respect at all. And of course he can get a full combo punish by just standing up. But he doesn't have to stand up. He doesn't have to try some big brain move. He doesn't have to know what you're going to do. He can just try the move that often beats things if you did it wrong, and it wins. So you have a not quite as good as an overhead launching side switching starter with low damage, and it's reactable and it's punishable. So if you want a really crappy mix-up, here's the answer. You want a mix-up that'll work once or twice and then get you full comboed every other time you try to use it. Yeah, this might do the job. And if your opponent already knows what's going on, it won't even work once or twice. But these aren't the moves that people play Goro for. The move that people play Goro for is Raise the Roof. His up punch. Up punch is definitely his best move, but it also has problems. Up punch is an ambush. I can still move around, do whatever I want when as it's coming out. As you can see. So we can use it mid-combo. We can use it during block strength to make ourselves safe. Like that. Now, we can even make ourselves plus. If we time it correctly, we can get up to like 13 plus frames, I think is the best I've ever done. There, I only got 2. There, I got 4. You nail down the timing, you can get up to 13. I've done it before. But sometimes you are actually negative, even if you're not punishable. So, doing this does not actually mean that it's still your turn. It just means that you are safe. Now, if you do it at the right timing, you should be plus. It should still be your turn. You can go right into your next mid and continue the block string. So, in this way, it covers a pretty major weakness Shang has. Normally, when Shang takes a swing, he is giving up his turn. But with Goro, we can stop ourselves from giving up our turn and instead keep the pressure on. So, we're going to go over some of the problems with this move, though. Not the least of which is that. As you can see, this move is a high. And not only is it a high, it is a high that whiffs on crouch blockers. So, if your opponent is sitting here like this, and you time Goro a little bit late, that doesn't work. Goro just completely whiffs. And this problem will happen at every range. See, we have every version of Raise the Roof, which is aimable. You can make it close to you by just pressing neutral Kameo. You can make it mid-screen by pressing down. You can make it full screen by pressing up. And although it doesn't exactly look like it's full screen, it is in fact full screen. As you can see, that does hit at maximum distance. So, either way, your opponent can always crouch. And This means that when we are zoning our opponents, we have the same problem that we always have by default, which is that all of our skulls go over him, and we say, well, how do we enforce them? Not with that, let me tell you. That does not enforce our skulls. In fact, that's just asking for Goro to get hit and for us to lose our Kameo for however long they're gone after they get hit. 6 seconds or something like that. And the upsides to this move are that it has a very fast startup. It can be used in the middle of combos. And it can be used to make melee moves plus unblock, but we have to be holding our opponent in block stun when this move connects. Otherwise, they can just crouch it. And in fact, if they're crouch blocking, that's good enough. They will accidentally make the move whiff, even if they didn't think it was going to whiff. So they can keep blocking and crouching. And if the move whiffs, they'll see it whiff. And if the move doesn't whiff, then they block it. So basically, they just get a free option select on this move every single time you use it. So if you mess up the timing, you'll get punished for sure. You'll definitely at least get jabbed. So the fact that it's aimable is an upside for this move, because we could use it to do something like ground skull juggles. Now, it isn't super incredible for this purpose, but it does work. Right? We can say, we hit with ground skull, now we see Goro, and we can make it a little easier to hit confirm a move that we already can hit confirm. As you can see, this has about an average Kameo refill timing as well. Yeah, it doesn't even really make it that much easier to hit confirm the move, but there it is. And then it makes our timing on the EX ground skull a little more awkward. You might be able to get an extra ground skull in there. There we go. So you can get an extra hit in there with your ground skull, in addition to the hit from Goro himself. Before your combo happens. You can definitely land a kick and then an EX injection at the end of that, get an okay combo at full screen. But we do already combo from full screen, and we can hit confirm it. We can see, oh, you got hit. So we're going to use our EX ground skulls like that. So we're not getting a huge boon from Goro on this. We're making it slightly easier to hit confirm. However, if our opponent is sitting over there and crouching and blocking, like they probably are, because that's the best way to avoid our barrages, they're doing this, right? And we go like that, nothing. Goro gives us nothing right there. So he's not really enhancing anything about our zoning, other than if our opponent dashes at us after something unsafe and he tries to dash up, we could do that and try to hit him. And it's okay-ish, but really he could just jab out of it, he could crouch. There are a lot of answers. He's not going to hold people back for long. Now, one thing that it does well is that it gives us Form Stealer combos. When you have Goro, you can do something like this. As you can see, you can catch your opponent. There we go. We don't sacrifice a ton of damage. We get our Form Stealer. With some characters, we can get crazy damage out of that. We can do meterless Form Stealer routes. This is pretty common. Most cameos give you access to a Form Stealer route without using meter. But Goro's is easy enough to do. And you can kind of call it out on the fly. Like with a lot of these, you'd have to call out your cameo a little bit early. With Goro, you just call it out like right when it looks like you should call him out. Right when you actually want him to do his move, that's when you call him. Where with some, you gotta call them early so that they do their move on time. And with some, like Sector, you'd be taking a risk, you know, trying to find the right timing where it option selects so that if they block, the rocket hits them immediately after your string, and if it hits, that it hits them to continue the combo. You'd be trying to find a good timing for that. You don't have to do that with Goro. You can just hit him when you want him. And that's basically what Goro has going on for Shang Tsung. It's not a lot, and my overall thoughts on him are that he's kind of a bad cameo in general, but I think he's particularly bad for Shang. He doesn't enhance the zoning game. He does give us something up close, so he's not completely worthless. You know, he's not like a avoid this cameo at all costs kind of cameo. But he is like a are you sure you want to do this kind of cameo. As you can see, we weren't even plus enough there to go into our knee. And people won't start respecting your plus frames until you show them that they have to. So you're hoping to do something like that, but if your timing is a little bit off, you won't be able to. And I promise you every opponent will test you. So he shores up this close range issue, but he doesn't shore it up as tightly as somebody like Kano or Sector does. They can make block strings that have many more plus frames for them. They can do alternate timings because their moves are mids. So they can make the timing different enough that you can get even more plus frames, and if your opponent doesn't respect it, they get hit by the mid. In this case, 54 block advantage, and it's a high, so if there's any gap between your move and your opponent's, or your move and Goro's move, your opponent will get out of the block string that way, and they'll do it as an option select as long as they're crouch blocking. So it doesn't shore up all of Shang's issues at close range, although it works for the most part. It doesn't give him anything for zoning. It has terrible cooldowns across the board. Every one of Goro's moves has an awful cooldown, especially for the quality of move you're getting. He gives you a fake mix-up that is going to work once or twice and then get you killed. He has more than one useless move. This move is completely worthless. Shoken Stomp has way too much cooldown. It could be good, but it isn't. And dead weight is dead weight. So he offers you some narrow checkmate scenarios where we're in the corner and we're pressuring our opponent. And we want this unblockable coming down. Or we're going to go unblockable. We can't even throw mid-screen to make that work. A lot of problems. So, overall, I think Goro offers very, very little to our game plan. And is probably a cameo that you should not consider playing with Shang Tsung. It can be made to work, and if you're very determined to have Goro on your team, then fine, you can have Goro on your team. But if you're looking for the best cameos for Shang Tsung, Goro is pretty far down the list. Anyway, that's the video. If you enjoyed it, give me a like, a comment, subscribe, and give me the deed to your home. See you in the next one.